Hey everybody, PJ Riley, Lancaster Archery. We are here in studio today for a tech talk with none other than Kolby Hanley from Ultraview. Kolby, I wanted to come in here and talk to you because I think the last time I talked to you, you were like a starving college kid.
Yeah.
Eating burritos and 3D printing thumb pegs.
Yeah.
Now you have the empire that is Ultraview.
The illustrious empire. I wish it was that, right?
So we thought that was like 6+ years ago, something like that.
It must have been. I mean, at least 6. I mean, it was probably no more than a year and a half in.
Yeah.
So
give me the 50,000 foot view now of Ultraview, where it is. Is it what you expected?
Oh, that's funny. That's a funny question. I was literally, we had a customer in the area, like just stop in to kind of say hi. I think he had a question and he wanted to buy something. And I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off yesterday. And I saw him and I had time and I said, hey man, like what's your name? Shook his hand. He was like kind of at reception. And I'm like, well, you know, I can't show you everywhere, but like, let me take you out back and show you around some. So literally like 2 minutes, I took this guy around. He asked me the same question. He's like, dude, like what did you ever imagine this was going to be? And I told him it was, you know, when I first started the business, you know, the numbers that were in my head were like for it being a wild success. Like I've made it. I'm like, I've done what my life mission was to do. Those numbers are now like orders of magnitude different. And it is like it shocks me every day I wake up that it's even possible to do what we're doing right now. Like,
well, literally, you started 3D printing, as we were saying, you know, thumb pegs, different buttons for your releases, and now you have engineers building stuff like this, designing stuff like this.
Yeah.
How many engineers do you have?
Oh,
Speaking of which,
it fluctuates depending on what time of year it is, what projects we got in the pipeline. I think at the highest we've ever had, internally and externally, I mean, probably 10 people working on projects all at the same time. At the highest.
Yeah.
Which slider, I mean, this came from idea to this in 11 and a half months. We had to crank it out.
No kidding.
It required a lot of people. And then during the summer, we'll have some like engineering interns in. So it fluctuates, you know, on staff. If you include myself as an engineer, which technically I guess you can, you know, anywhere from probably 4 to 5 at any given time on staff. But it varies depending on the time of the year and what projects we're working on.
So we won't ask you to give up the super secret projects that you're working on right now, but like, how far ahead are you working on stuff? Like, is there stuff that's 10 years down the line?
Not realistically, no. You know, we have ideas that we maybe are slotting in that far, yes. But, you know, realistically speaking, I wish, and the team does too, we were a little more, you know, thoughtful and planned, because it's always like hand in front of the face, go type stuff.
Right.
And, you know, we're staying ahead of it best we can, but we're also playing catch up and get to market as fast as we can. And it's a delicate balance. So
your first, I believe you started with the hinge, correct?
So
after the funky fingers and things like
my
that.
Memory here today. Let's see. The real timeline would be, I guess the first product we ever sold, which is where the name Ultraview came from, was technically a light kit.
Oh, right.
It was that the light kit came about because I had just moved down to Atlanta, like the Georgia area, for school. And I also went down because I was there all the time for Archery, the Archery Learning Center with George, and I was there training, shooting on his team, traveling. And so I could mix my education with engineering at a great school with my passion for archery. And in the area, in the Southeast, I mean, you know, there's 3D shoots all the time. I mean, you could go to like a weekend shoot and then once a month there's a huge ASA somewhere. And so I was hitting those up and I was really frustrated by the light kits and the compatibility and the wires and the up pins. And it's just coming from very much a like target archery only, like paper background, and then to jump into 3D, I was like, what the heck is going on here? And so I literally just talking to George in the range, bouncing ideas around. He's like, well, back in the day, you know, we used to just tape lights to the riser and we'd accomplish this by doing that. And so I'm like, okay. And I was spending all the time in like 3D printing labs on campus, making things. And so I bought a $20 UV pen light from Amazon, deconstructed it, 3D printed and assembled, like hand soldered my own like light kit for it, and put the light bulb right on top of the scope, and it shined ultraviolet light into the middle of your lens, so you could light a center drilled fiber really, really well, or a fluorescent sticker dot. And the key is like, if you just use a normal light, a blue light or white light, it doesn't work as well as ultraviolet light. And I remember I was literally texting George back and forth, like, because George is a big entrepreneur, himself, and he'll push anybody to jump in onto an idea. And so he was really encouraging me to get this done. He's like, we got to go on Facebook. We got to do a live. We got to tell the world what you've made. And we were brainstorming, well, we got to call it something. And he's like, well, let's call it Ultraview. And I'm like, that's it. Because the light kit used ultraviolet light to help you see and view better. And it was just like, it clicked, and we put it on live, Facebook Live, when Facebook Live was like big back in the day. It caught a great thread, and like we had an Etsy store that we sold it on. And it was like lights out. The Etsy store like thought some fraudulent thing was going on. So like it shut the store down, and it literally first day out of the gate, it was like, holy crap, I need to buy more inventory. I need to make this because I've accepted orders. I got to ship the orders. And, I've been playing that same game ever since.
Does George Riles get like 50 cents every time someone says the word Ultraview?
No, I don't get 50 cents every time everybody says Ultraview. No, but that was, and actually a funny story was. So like how many of those first time you came out, how many do you think people? I think the first weekend we sold like 30 or 50 light kits just like this, which I only had enough parts to make like 10.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had, at the time, I'm trying to think now.
Whoever made those UV light pens, they were like, all of a sudden,
I bought Amazon. Eventually, it got to the point where Amazon didn't have enough inventory. It was like a random light. Like they didn't have a lot of them.
Sure.
And so I finally figured out who the manufacturer was, and I started calling their sales line. And I spoke to this sweet lady. I think her name was like Stephanie or something. And I'm like, hey, Stephanie, like I'm buying these lights off of Amazon, but I really just need like the head of the light. I don't need anything else. So she cut me a deal on the head only. And they sent me like bulk boxes of like just these heads. And they must have wondered like, what the hell is this college kid doing with all of these lights? And so, that went on for about a year or so. And then I started thinking like, what else can I use? Because I was only using the 3D printer to like make the enclosure for the batteries, and then make like a little gooseneck to hold that light and shine it on the lens. And I started thinking like, what else can I make with a 3D printer that would help me with my archery and would help other people shoot? And pretty quickly I'm like, oh, we can do grips. That was right when Hoyt came out with like their modular target grip system.
Yeah.
And, Matthews grips as well. And so I jumped right into doing that. And it wasn't too long before we came out with the grips, we're like, well, do we want to change the name of the business? Like, because now it's not just the light kit. Like we're doing other things.
Yeah.
So we thought about maybe coming up with a new name. We couldn't find anyone better, and so we just ran with it. And at first I thought it was kind of weird, but I kind of like it now.
Heck yeah.
So yeah.
I was thinking of your like post-college.
Yeah, so I guess back to
product.
Yeah, back to your the first real product was probably the Ultraview 2. Because that was and I classify it as such because that was the first product that required CNC machining, and it wasn't just like handmade with 3D printers. And so that was 2018, I think. Maybe he could pull it up, some videos, some really old videos in the year, all the way to the bottom. Yeah, crispy right there. That was the interview we were just talking about. And so what year is that? I think it was 2018.
2018?
And then...
kind of fat there.
PJ, you picked up some more gray hair since then.
And that too.
And so you see it. It's got the machine flutes. The lights were still 3D printed. We learned pretty quickly that we needed a new material because that material didn't work right. That was in 2018, and then that took off really well. And then our next product was actually the hinge, like the original hinge.
Gotcha.
And that was the next year in Vegas when we came out with that one. Once again, that was like our first entry into real releases. We knew we wanted to get into releases because we were 3D printing accessories to every release on the market.
Exactly.
And so it was kind of the next step. And once again, you know, the machinist was right down the road. I remember the Ultraview 2. I walked in, PJ, this is a month before launch. Like this, nowadays, it would be impossible, right? I literally Googled local machine shops. And this is in the middle of college. Like I skipped the senior design lecture to go do this. Like I just didn't show up to class that day. And I walk in, like I find a list of local machinists and I start calling them. And the first one that took my call and like was there and I could go in, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be there in like an hour. And so I literally get in my car, drive from campus to this machine shop, walk in, and I practically get on my knees. And I'm like, I need this number of units by this date. And thinking about it now, like they must have just loved my passion or something, because there's no reason why they had to do it. And so they very quickly cut up enough for us to like do a first production batch and bring them to Vegas and unveil the whole product. And
how about that?
It's just one barrier right over the other. We're just jumping over, you know?
So, and it sounds like so that there is, as usually as it comes along, that there's some luck involved.
Oh,
that you hit the right path. I mean, you could have hit somebody
it's
who...
like every opportunity is like every 10, every 9 is hard work, and every 1 out of 10 is like maybe you get luck on it.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
You had everything in place, but just to get it over the finish line.
The most recent one, which I guess we'll dig on the newest product 1K in a little bit, but the most recent luck thing that we had was when Victory shipped us our first production batch of these arrows. It was the first like big shipment to us, and they used their normal carrier and they put it on a truck, but they're in West Coast, we're East Coast, and that carrier put it on a rail car. And so we heard our supply chain manager heard that it's on a rail car, and we're like, what the heck? Like, how is this going to get from the rail car distribution center back into a truck, back to our DC? Like, so our team, we literally, like my operations team for a whole day checked out. They rented a truck. They drove to the rail car. They emptied the rail car full of arrows into a truck, and then we drove it to our facility ourselves to stock. And if they hadn't done that, we wouldn't have had product to like launch on launch day.
Oh, man.
And like, it's just one barrier right after the other that you just have to just like fight through.
Who would ever figure that's going to end up on a train?
No one. It's like point A and point B, both trucks, but in between the carrier is like, we're putting it on a train.
Yeah.
So
see, this is the stuff I think that's cool that you're learning as Ultraview's growing and getting into different things, that just stuff that you encounter along the way.
It's all the backdoor things, like the back end of the business that people just don't. I mean, the team is hustling, like they're sweating, blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, everything like they're putting into it.
Is there or was there any order to the order? In other words, come out with the hinge, and then I forget if the button was next or the hinge. I think the button was next before the hinge 2. Then the stabilizers, the sight, the arrows. Are those things in order for a reason?
I mean, yes and no. So like everybody always wants to know like what's next, and I tell everybody that our mission from a product standpoint is to have, you know, our goal is to never sell the most of anything. If we happen to sell the most of anything, great. But our actual goal is to make the best product in every category. And, you know, you've kind of noticed we're checking off kind of categories on the list. Is there a, you know, method to the madness? You know, yeah, there is a little bit. So when we got into releases, it was pretty easy to get into that because we had already accumulated a customer set that was buying release accessories from us.
Right.
The first, the light kit transitioned into scopes very quickly because I'm like, well, why is a light kit even a thing? Why is the light and the scope not just integrated into one product, right? And so the scope was first, and we were also selling release accessories. So we're like, we got to get into releases. We had a lot of just knowledge on how release functions and worked anyway, so we could design and engineer one. We toyed around with just scopes and releases for a while, So Ultraview 2 was our first real big boy scope.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came out with the hinge in Vegas. Then I believe we came out with the Ultraview 3, which is the foundation of our scope still. That must have been probably 2020-ish is when we came out with the Ultraview 3, same light, integrated everything. And then we updated, I think, the hinge to the hinge 2. Because we had a lot of them, we had improvements and we wanted to add more to it. But actually, to now dig into the method of the madness here, which actually, here's one right here.
Yes.
We designed the hinge 2, knowing we were going to come out with button later in the year.
Gotcha.
And so it was actually, in a perfect world, it would have been a lot easier to come out with the button first, design the button first, because you got to fit guts into this thing. The guts that go into this thing are a lot easier to fit into it.
Right.
And so we actually had to start very quickly looking at the button, going, what is our area that we can work in? And when we design the releases, which sounds weird, but we started with the human hand. We did not start with a list of features that we wanted to put into the product. So we started with constraints, design constraints. A lot of the best creativity comes out of the most constrained environments. And so we're like, it needs to be X thick for us to fit the internals and still have it be not too thick to where it doesn't fit in your hand well. The finger beds need to be located in these areas with these radiuses. And then we want the hook position, in relation to the index finger here. So we constrained everything with all of our dimensions, thinking about the button, and we put that down. And then we designed the hinge 2. We came out with the hinge 2 in Vegas that year. It was actually very successful. In regards to product launches, I would actually say it's one of our most successful.
Gotcha. The 2 moons.
Depending on how you want to look at it.
I'm a huge fan of 2 moons.
And so the biggest upgrade was 2 moons. You can adjust the click. And then this came out in February, and button came out in August. And the thing with button was we were transitioning more into quality bow hunting equipment. And the reason why is because when our scope sales, we made hunting scopes. It was a target scope that we then retrofitted for hunting. In part because of Chris. Chris was using our stuff. And we noticed that our hunting sales just kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and more bow hunters wanted to get in, and they were loving using our stuff. And so we're like, well, wait a second here. And so we paused and we thought about it for a second. And so we decided to make a couple last second design tweaks to the button, because we're like, well, are we shifting to more bow hunting now? And so, really the only change from this being, this is as good of a release as a target archer could possibly ask for. This is going to win, gold medals. The only thing that you could argue is an added feature for bow hunting is this little clip.
Yeah.
Right. And honestly, I've seen some guys even open it up, which you should not do. It voids warranty. Don't open it up. But for target archery, some guys just open it up, take the clip out, and button it back down because they just don't want to mess with it in target archery. But we deliberately put the clip in, designed this for bow hunting, and the other thing for bow hunting too, which is still baked into it for us because we prefer it, is that the hook is more over your middle finger. So it distributes the weight more evenly across your fingers, so you can pull an 80-pound hunting bow and it not be on one of your fingers.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot more comfortable, ergonomic. The knob is great. We to your point earlier, we've designed hundreds of knobs And so we already knew like our preferences, design, shapes, contours on the knobs that fit really well into your hand. So that's how we got into like our current line of releases now. And then we're like,
how are they still doing? Because they haven't changed now in 2 years.
In a while, no. And they're cooking, man. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you could officially figure this out, but to the best of my knowledge, like it's got to be the number one selling thumb button release on the market.
I believe it is. Can't remember. We go through periods where that one sells the best.
I mean, I have had, and one of the things I'm trying to get the word out now too is like we love working with dealers across the country. A lot of dealers think we don't work with dealers, but the dealers that do sell this, they'll like call me up and go, man, they're selling like, it's like a Skittles at the checkout line. They're like, we had like they just came in and we had them set on our counter right next to the cash register.
Yeah.
And we had a guy buy like some arrows and he said, hey, is that the new Ultraview button? And he bought it at the checkout like it was a pack of gum. and so, I think a lot of the dealers like psych themselves out first. Like, maybe that won't be super popular, but we hear feedback like that and I'm like,
we had them at the big 10-day show in Harrisburg every winter, the big Harrisburg show. We have those, and last 2 years, we sell everything we bring.
Yeah.
Whatever we bring, they're gone.
and yeah, I mean, people love it. And I think that the thing is, especially with our release, actually, I'd love to get onto our ethos behind all of our categories. We'll get there, I'm sure, in the podcast. But the thing with the releases is we started with a blank slate and we're like, what is the most important thing for a release for an archer? It has to fit your hand comfortably and consistently. And to do that, like I said earlier, you have to start and constrain yourself as that and then figure out how to bake in all of the features that you need that make it a top of the line product. It's, in our opinion, it's backwards to start with the list, make it work, and then kind of maybe tweak it to make it look cool and kind of fit in your hand, right? And to do product design, we're huge product nerds. Like we love products, we love design. We spend a lot of time thinking about it. A lot of our engineers actually, their background is product design, like specifically product design, like the industrial engineering that goes behind it. And so we literally, in every category we get into, whether it's releases, arrows, sights, scopes, in all of our launch films, we say we started with a blank canvas. We built it from the ground up, like all of the cliche things, right? But that is 100% true. We get that opportunity we don't have, a baseline. So we literally start from a blank sheet of paper, and we as a team very strategically, and I would say effectively, speak to bow hunters. We have our preferences, but that's just a handful of opinions. So we bring in other people. What do you look for? What do you like? What don't you like? And we literally drill down to what are the most important things that this product needs to do for you as an archer. For a release, we drilled it down to it's got to fit in your hand comfortably and consistently. You shouldn't have a callus. You should be able to pull an 80-pound hunting bow. You should be able to put it in your hand the same way every single time without thinking about it, right? It should work for you, not the other way around. And then if you'd use that same ethos behind the sight, like the Ultraview slider, the same game plan. Start with a blank canvas. Speak to everybody internally. Speak to everybody externally. What do you like? What don't you like about what's out there right now? And you drill down to what are the most important features that this product needs to do for you as a passionate archer and bow hunter. And then you curate your design off of that list. That's how you develop good products. And so in a sliding sight, the number one thing that we realized was ergonomics. Like in the field, the only thing that's really actively changing when stuff's going down is the distance you got to shoot the animal at. And if you want to be very, very accurate, also if it's like if you're shooting more long range, like if you're out west or something, then you're going to have to engage with your sight. And if you're doing that, it should be the easiest thing you do. It's so much so it works for you and not the other way around. You shouldn't even have to think about it. And so that was what drove every micro design decision further. And that's, you know, the hardest slider. That's where we came up with the dual dial. We learned very, very quickly that, you know, if you put the windage knob, typically when you look at sliding sights, the windage knob is somewhere next to your elevation. Well, if it's next to elevation, it jams you up when you go to move it.
Hit your finger on it. Yep.
And so the most effective place to really put it where it doesn't affect your ability to mess with it is right in the middle. Well, PJ, there's a lot of engineering challenges to put the windage knob in the middle of your elevation knob. But if that's what's going to make the best product, we're going to figure out how to do it, you know?
Yeah.
And so that is like, to get back to your original thing of like the method of the madness and the progression of things, we not only just methodically design like the products that way, but we think about which ones and which categories we enter into in a similar like crazy mindset. Like we're crazy product people. And so releases, we got into them because we were kind of already moving in that direction. Scopes was kind of the first big thing. And we realized everybody buying one of our hunting scopes is putting this on a sliding sight. And, you know, everybody knows the list of who makes a sliding sight.
Yep.
And when we looked around, you know, everything we say in our launch films is 100% true. When we looked around in the office, everybody had a different sliding sight, you know, and there was groups of people that preferred one over the other and this and that. And even externally, same thing, right? And so to me, that's like, well, there's probably not a great option out there if industry-wide there's not a clear preference. And so we saw our scope sales were cranking, and we're like, well, we're gonna get into this. And so I set a very aggressive timeline for our engineering team. And I said, I want a sliding sight by this date. I don't care what you have to do, figure it out. And they figured it out. And literally, like, actually, it was almost a year probably to today. What's today's date? The 26th?
The 27th, yeah.
It was, I think it was August
it was around
19th.
This.
It was like almost 17th?
17th.
Yeah, so 10 days difference to a year anniversary. But this was literally an idea. We want to come out with a sliding sight because we believe there'd be a great opportunity to come out with one. And from that to this was 11 and a half months. From including first prototype, manufacturing, like the design for manufacturability, like production, hiring staff to have production lines. Like it was a sprint. And
it looks simple from the outside, but once you start looking at it, it's not simple.
Is one of the most complicated pieces of equipment. It is probably the most complicated piece of equipment you're going to buy as a bow hunter. The bill of materials on this thing, I promise you, is longer than the bill of materials on a bow. A bow is like, it's big and it's much more difficult to make one and stuff, but the list of parts that go into bow is much shorter than the list that goes into a sight like this.
That's crazy.
And
you know, we want to talk about price of some things. I remember when this came out, oh, that price, that's crazy. Nobody's going to buy that. And yet, if you go to Attack,
I mean,
you're going to see
more and more people
of these
every day are choosing UV slider. And the thing with the price behind, you know, every single one of our products is we bake a lot into the product. So you got to look at what you're getting for what you're paying for.
Right.
And what I have learned now doing this for many moons now, all 6.5 years, is you don't, like, if you're going to buy all of the things a la carte and add it up and you compare it, you know, to our offering versus if you get the same type of things, but from maybe 5 different other companies, a lot of the times you're actually spending more on the ladder. And it's difficult for us to come out with products because we bake everything in the box and we try to, as best we can, get the best price possible on it. But at the end of the day, we price it accordingly. And a lot of the times there's sticker shock. But in a lot of our products, it is incredibly rare. In fact, I will almost say I've never seen somebody purchase one, open it up, use it, and go, that's not worth the money.
Right.
Not once. Now, there may be somebody goes, oh, I maybe just don't prefer this because of X, Y, and Z, and that's fine. But if you really look at the value set, it is very much there in our opinion.
You can't pick this up and say, this is just a $200 site that they put extra on.
And I guess, I mean, I can run you through. So like, and another reason why, like, we knew there was a market for a quality sliding site like this at a price point to like, it's not easy to design all this and manufacture it. Like, the manufacturing of some of these parts is insane. You know, some of our machinists were like, that's not possible. And we're like, figure it out, because we're coming out with it anyway. And so if you look at what you're getting here, you're getting one of our scopes, which before we came out with the sliding site, people were buying our scopes and loving them, and they were bolting them onto a sliding site anyway. And to just do that, period, you were already spending at least $550 minimum. Most of the time you're over $600 anyway, right? You're getting a light, an integrated light, not just any old light that is bolted onto the side with a wire, an integrated light with a timer and up and down brightness. It can light up your level even if you want to. You're getting our cartridge swapping capability. So you can go from a horizontal 3-pin to a vertical 1-pin, 2-pin, 3-pin, whatever. Our middle pin's fixed with the indicators. Your marks don't change. You could literally shoot a vertical up post with a lens in your league night on a Thursday night, and on Saturday morning, throw in your horizontal 3-pin, your marks won't change, and you can shoot your deer. So you have that type of versatility in the scope. And then on the sight side, you have the most incredible anti-backlash, like rack and pinion design that you've ever seen. It's fully ergonomic with like a watch crown type windage dial here. So you can just rack this wherever you need to in any type of moment. And like even more innovation with like, you can just you can keep this on your bow, put this in the case, travel, re-rack, nothing changes. You're ready to rock and roll. You have micro adjust first, second, third axis. Like, you got 2 sight tapes. You can have your setup tape or 2 arrows. Like, PJ, like, come on. Like,
the micro adjust second axis, let me just say, I love that thing.
So we pack a lot into it.
Yeah.
And
that's what I mean. You can't, I get it. Some people like to complain about the price because it's expensive, but to be fair, today I like to fish. God, fishing reels cost way more now than they did when I first started. And, in anything, lures, whatever, golf. Kyle's a golfer. Stuff in general costs more. You can't just say, like I always see, archery's getting out of control. I don't think it's fair to pick out archery.
I should not, but I read all the comments, and there's people that think, Ultraview, we're lacing our pockets. And I was thinking on the way here.
This is my favorite. Right? I called you when I saw that one comment that you had came, I forget what it was.
Oh, yeah, I came from, Chris and I came from money and or something like that. Yeah.
And I immediately thought of the story and I'll tell you, of this kid sleeping in a frat room that he rented, eating Walmart burritos, getting sick from them because that's what you could afford.
Because rent at the frat house during the summer was like $1,400 for 4 months.
Yeah.
And like, it was moldy and gross, but that was the cheapest place to live.
At one point during the overnight, you were going downtown and doing vinyl signs on windows.
So at the business started, like, when we were talking about 3D printing and the side hustle, when the business started, I was getting an engineering degree at Georgia Tech, which like in itself is like enough for most.
That would be enough for me.
I was still competing, in archery, relatively at a high level. I was doing undergraduate research on campus because I wanted to check that box. I wanted to be published on a journal, so I checked that box. Learned very quickly I don't want to go into research, but check that box. And I moved down to Atlanta with like $1,000 in my bank account and no plan. I was just going to figure it out. Still don't have a plan, still figuring it out. But one of my buddies that shot bow was like, hey man, I work, he was like, I don't know his actual job title, but he had a great gig. He was working nights downtown, managing like hanging up signs at like a huge convention center. And it was start at 7 p.m., work until the job's done. And there's like a 3-hour minimum, and you were there. Sometimes you got done in 2 hours if it wasn't a big show. Sometimes you were there till 2, 3 in the morning. And I was doing all of that. Ultraview was ticking off. And to your point, living in the basement of a disgusting frat house because rent was cheap. I was not part of the fraternity. And eating 50-cent, like clearance level Walmart burritos with like 1 million grams of sodium. I literally ended up in the hospital with like health issues.
Yes, I remember that.
And
that's the wealth.
That's the wealth I came from. But I was thinking on the drive here, I flew into Philly, so I had like an hour and a half to think about Lancaster and the beautiful country that we're driving through. And I'm like, look at what Rob Kaufhold has done for this industry. You know, every dollar that Lancaster Archery has made since what, 1983?
83.
Has been put back into archery one way or another.
Yeah.
And when you look at Ultraview, when you look at what Chris is doing, like we still are broke because we're still spending all of our money on archery because we're putting it all back into the sport. You know, so we can develop the next greatest best thing to drive innovation, to push the industry forward. Because we have an archery problem. You know, I didn't have any money. I got a job as a kid to fund my archery problem, to pay for my archery equipment. Haven't had a penny since I started this archery thing. And we make products for ourselves. Yeah. Products that we would like to use. And if we were 15 years ago, I would save up and I would buy that dang thing because I wanted it. Yeah. And that is, you know, who we're catering for. We're catering for the archery freaks who will get a second side hustle just enough to get the new target bow that year. Or just to keep up with the new models. And like, that's how, like, that's the passion that we have for this.
It's funny you mentioned Rob because people see our, 40-foot trailers with the stickers all over the side and mobile archery shop. But they don't remember Rob driving around and doing that from the trunk of his car.
George would always tell me stories. Yeah, Rob would show up at the show. He'd lay out all of his veins and stuff on the table, on his fold-up table, and it's like no one understands that. And it's to a certain extent that's what we're signing up for too, right? Yeah. And it is what it is. Reading comments like that hurt and they sting, but it also, I'm doing something. If you're making somebody mad, you're probably doing something, right? So
arrows. Like, where does that come in? For me, looking from the outside, I say, okay, releases. Yep. I see sights, given what you're doing. Arrows, to me, would seem like out of the spectrum.
Yeah, and it justifiably very much was, right? We eventually have to break into new categories. And, we have lists and we talk a lot about new products and vanes, even before I was at Georgia Tech, even just talking to people in the industry, like, I always had all these ideas for cool vanes and like cutouts and like arrows and all that jazz. And we're like, we probably have an opportunity. We look for issues. We look for problems, right? We don't just come out with something to just come out with something. And the arrows check, there's so much we can talk about. I think it's very hard for us to talk about it all at once, and we'll eventually in good time here, we will get it all out, right? But you're right, it was a left field for a lot of people, and we had been working on this project for at least a year and a half, behind closed doors. And so by the time it came out, like everybody that had an Ultraview hat on internally, it was like normal, and we came out with it and it was like, oh, this is very much left field, right? And the reason why actually is as Ultraview started to get more and more bow hunting centric, because that's just the direction, like we were being pulled, like we were being yanked in that direction, whether we liked it or not. I personally started getting more in bow hunting. I mean, my background is very much target archery, like, as George would say, you probably saw me this tall running around the Lancaster Classic like 12 years ago. And I'm like, I didn't realize it at first. A lot of the times people won't realize there's an issue or there's friction because you're just used to it.
Right.
And funny enough, building a target arrow is much, much, much easier than building a hunting arrow. And it was not the first time I had to set up a batch of hunting arrows, right? But it was a time where I was a little bit in a hurry. I was probably already in a, frustrated mood that day. And I literally like last second decided I was going to attack. I didn't really have a setup to go because I was like in between seasons. I had to set up a new bow that I had laying around that needed to be set up, and I didn't really have arrows for it. And PJ, I just needed good stuff to go shoot. Yeah. And I'm like, well, if I'm buying this, like I want to make sure I buy the stuff that I want to continue to use, like so I don't buy something last second that I don't really want and then end up buying what I want later. So I'm like, I just want the good stuff so I can buy it now, forget about it, and I have it for a good season or two and I don't have to worry about it. PJ, I couldn't build my own, I couldn't figure out how to buy and build my own dang arrows. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? Like, why can't I? Like I've been in archery for like 17, 18 years now.
Yeah.
A large portion of my life at like a deep level. And
right.
And like, I can't, cause it changes.
Not the weekend
like,
warrior.
No, not the weekend warrior. And it's like, and it's difficult cause every year the models and the options change and the names change. And I'm like, I can't figure out what the heck I need to buy. And so I'm like, all right, there's a huge issue here. And so one was just the confusion side of things. Like, why does this even exist? That was one of many issues. Yeah. That was the straw that broke my back. And I'm like, I think there's maybe in one of Chris's videos on his channel, he talks about the story behind it. But I'm like, Chris, we're getting into arrows. I don't care how. I don't know what we're going to do. I have no idea what this is going to look like or our direction is, but like there's an opportunity here. We have to solve this problem. And so that was the spark. And then at the same time, I believe, Chris was like, he made it pretty clear in another one of his videos. He's never really signed an arrow deal. Like he's never worked at that level with an arrow company. He's always loved the flexibility to try things and tweak. And, all the arrow companies were always talking to Chris, and Chris was like, nope, I'm good. Like we're good. And, the relationships facilitated between us and Victory. And we went to Victory and we're like, hey, we want to come out with an arrow. We cannot possibly do this ourselves. Like this is just like what's required to make one of these is like, you got to have been doing this for many, 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 many years.
Yeah.
So we knew we had to partner with somebody. We didn't know who or how. And I was really nervous to like, there's not that many arrow manufacturers out there. And there's especially like, in our opinion, there was one really, really good one that we wanted to work with. And if they said no, then it was like, well, dang, what do we do now? I was very nervous to go, Steve Greenwood's like their president, to call him up, or maybe it was at an ATA show. I don't exactly remember where, but I do remember being very nervous and going, hey, Steve, like, what do you think about this? Laid it out. And he was immediately on board. He was like, well, heck yeah, I would love to do that with you guys. And so I'm like, sweet, that was easy. That was the easiest sell I ever had to do. And then it started to get fun. Because then, once again, brand new category, blank slate. Like, we knew on one of our big issues was like I said, just the compatibility and the ease of understanding. Like, I just want good stuff. Just show me where to go get it and I'll get it, right? The other thing was like, well, Victory already makes like pretty dang good arrows, like phenomenal arrows. Like, how could we possibly make these better? Right. And so for the longest time, I mean, for several months when we started Victory, we were really toying around with like, well, how can we make this better? Now we already knew that there was some opportunity on the veins. Right. And like we knew out of the gate, we wanted to have just the most premium like outserts in the box already. So you weren't getting blank shafts with or without aluminum inserts that you upgrade. Like I think it does, you probably know, like a dozen quality outserts are like, I think at least $60 now. Mm-hmm. And so we just wanted those in the box. But then when it came to like the arrow itself, we felt stuck. And we were talking to Victory and they kind of hinted that, we can play around with a new material. Honestly, it never even occurred to us at first that we could mess around with the material. Right. And once we kind of realized that, we were like, wait a second here, pause. Like, what do you mean we can find a new material? And we're like, they gave us some options. They actually made, Bruce has his office. He was like this, he led the whole project. His office about this size, walls full of like arrows, different sizes, different materials. So they sent us a whole bunch of different materials and sizes. And
we should mention Victory is a company of Mitsubishi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they have access to probably the world's largest supply of different carbons.
So Mitsubishi Chemical is a chemical company. Yeah. And to my knowledge, I may be wrong here, but they have like one of maybe 2 or 3 vertical supply chains of carbon like in the world globally.
Yes.
And Victory is just like a very, very like tiny, like go sell some carbon arrows over there and don't get in trouble doing it. And so we're like, wait a second, what do you mean new materials? Like, and we talked about materials back and forth for a little while, and we finally just like, wait, why are we discussing? Like, what's the best material we can put in this arrow, period? What is it? And they were like, well, there's this 1K material, but there were 2 reasons on the but. The biggest one was actually, we're not sure we can get enough of it to like do this.
Right.
And 2, it's crazy expensive. And once again, like machinists,
which would explain, people have been saying, oh, Victory would just use it, which kind of explains why they don't, why and they didn't.
Logistically speaking, and I'll get into this too, like the things we had to do behind the product so we could do it. And there's reasons why Victory couldn't, because of how their business is structured and set up and their supply chain and distribution and all of that.
Right.
And so we're like, alrighty a second. What's so new and cool about this material? And you know, everybody listening to this has probably seen many videos about the 1K, but it's a tighter weave. It's, if you're really what you need to know from an arrow standpoint is if you're looking at a list of carbons, 1K, 2K, 3K, 12 weave, square weave, 45, 90, like there's a million different ways you can lay up carbon with different weaves. If you're looking at the whole list of carbon and then you were going to go, all right, this thing is like in flight. It requires flight aerodynamics, and it's going to be moving through the air fast, and you cater your material on a carbon basis to fit the best need for that. It's the 1K carbon, period. We keep talking about the recovery. You actually did a really good job in your like review of the 1Ks talking about the recovery rate that I thought was very easily to understand. Meaning like after you shoot, you know, arrows, if you see slow-mo, they like swim like a fish downrange, right?
Yeah.
Ooh. After you shoot, how long does it take for that to stabilize?
Yeah.
Now, you would think it has, you know, a stiffer arrow and maybe, you know, stabilized quicker, but it really comes down to the materials within the shaft here. And I was showing you a video right before this of like the oscillations of this comparison to others. Like this stabilizes incredibly fast in air. And that has a lot of great benefits. A, it's just going to be more accurate. But it's going to be more accurate because less energy is going to be spent just wobbling in space, and more energy is going to be spent going straight down.
Well, that's something archers should know from that is with tuning. The less you ask your arrow to do, the straighter it's going to go.
Right.
Yeah, it will correct a horrible paper tear. But do you want it spending all its energy trying to straighten that out, or just have it come out straight to begin with?
And so they were like, yeah, we got this material. It's great. You know, the recovery rate's phenomenal. They ran some of their initial tests. I don't know what they were, but Steve kept calling me up. He kept, this arrow's phenomenal. The tests are crazy good. We've never seen anything this good before. And we're like, great news, Steve. Send them our way. He was all fired up about it. And then once we realized, well, we are going to go from knock to point. We're designing this whole thing with what is it's all going to work great. Like every single one of our products, right? It's going to be a system. It's all going to work great together. It's going to be designed with the highest metrics for you as a bow hunter that you need. And then we realized actually, you know, the size of the arrow being 4.5, we realized if everything is coming in the box, ready to rock and roll, you don't have to upgrade or do any custom work to it because it's already best in class and innovated. Like it is best in class, period.
Right.
Then you're not pigeonholed to compatibility. Like you just don't even have to worry about it. And so we're like, wait a second, we're like, wow, we have so much more that we can do. And we're like, because we had 4 mil and we had 5 mil sample shafts. And we were having to pick, well, we can't really do both to get to the point on like the distribution and costs and stuff. Like we just we couldn't do both. We had to pick one.
That would be double the amount of carbon you need.
Double the amount of SKUs.
You have to do
all
5.
The complexity, like double the amount of mandrels. Like, you know, the mandrel, we had to invest in the mandrels for this. Like that's like when you're molding things, you got to invest in the mold, like the whole supply chain, the procurement, everything. And so we realized, well, wait a second, if you don't have to worry about compatibility, we can design like the best performing size. We could design it could happen to be a 4, could be 4.5, could be 4.8, could be 5.2, could be 3.8. Like, what's the best size with this material for this arrow? And we ended up on the 4.5. And it's funny because when you look at the wall thickness of this arrow, because this 1K is a much higher performing carbon, the strength to weight ratio is really high. You don't have to use as much of it to get the same stiffness.
Yeah.
So if you compare just like the cross section of this shaft to a 4 or a 5 mil standard in the industry, what you'll find is the shaft, the wall thickness is comparable to a 5 mil, but the outside diameter is actually comparable to a 4 mil arrow.
4, yeah.
And so we say best of both worlds because you're getting a micro diameter of a 4 mil, yet your wall thickness of the shaft and GPI is very equivalent to a 5 mil. And in fact, actually the GPI is lighter than a lot of 5 mil GPIs. And so when we looked at doing that and we're like, wait a second, we get that result by doing 4.5. And then the added benefits that we didn't even know. Steve said there's some like the ratio of the wall thickness to the OD to the ID and just this 1K material being a really great material to work with. Out of the press, PJ, almost every single one of these things off the mandrel are 001. Like to my knowledge, that's unheard of for arrows. They're sorted typically, V1, V3, V6. Yeah. And for the longest time, it was challenging for us to have a 001 SKU. And actually, Steve or some people here may have even heard, because we tell you guys about new stuff before it comes out so we can plan for it and get it in your hands and all that. For the longest time, we had a 001 line and we had a not 001 line. Well, when we got our production data back off this shaft, there wasn't enough left over after 001 to even just it. Like it was just like, it's negligible. Scrap it up. Like it was minuscule. And so then that once again gave us more like economies of scale, less SKUs, efficiencies just through simplification. And if anybody watches a tour of your distribution center here, you guys have walls and shelves of arrows and arrow components. I mean, I don't know how many thousands of SKUs that you have. You know how many SKUs you have of 1K for a full arrow line?
3.
3. We distilled thousands of SKUs of what could be different lengths and weights and straightnesses and spines and into 3. Once again, the added synergy, like all of these little micro decisions, every little one that gave more efficiencies in the supply chain knocked the price down a little bit, So like this material is almost untouchable in the fact that it's pricey and it's hard to get your hands on. They worked really hard at Victory to procure, like they went to all of their sister companies and they said, we're procuring all of the 1K. Like they fought for it for us so we could just have enough to make these dang things.
Yeah.
And then through the strategic design of the supply chain and all the efficiencies, we were able to really get it down to where it's at least like accessible. And it's not like $320 or something like that, right? Yes, it's an expensive arrow.
It is. It's not like
we know
it's
that.
the only expensive
Right.
arrow. There are expensive.
And actually, if you start doing the comparison game and apples to apples, and you build the top of the line brand A, and you upgrade the components, and you get your custom wrap and the color and design you want. With, I mean, good luck finding another vein like this on the market, and you throw it all together. We've done that math time and time and time and time again, and most end up between 180 and 200. And some of the top options are north of 200. And when you look at all of the innovation, like all of the innovation and all the new things that we've packed into this and the benefits for it, I mean, it's, BJ, we might raise the price now.
Just the vein even. You think of just a stamped vein. That's the normal process. The ribbon comes out, you stamp, and your vein comes off. But that's not what you have here, because you guys, and you said you went through many, many, many prototypes trying to, people are saying, I want to put my own veins on. I get that. Arrow building, that's part of the fun. But I know, because I tried it, of trying out many different veins to see what actually flies the best. And to go through that process, I don't know what that cost me to try
to stock up on veins,
many different veins to try them out, where you guys did that to come up with and make your own vein that would perform the best
with this specific weave and everything.
All this, work with it.
And I mean, I love the vein. It looks really good.
I think a lot of people choose veins just because they look cool, but actually don't necessarily do the testing to see if that is actually the one that works best for what you're shooting. They just like it because it looks cool.
Right. Well, that's half the game.
And I get it, sure. But when you go down to test, I was actually amazed at the differences that I saw once I did start trying different shapes, configurations, lengths, differences in speed, things like that. It makes a difference.
Which that's actually something new I learned just the other day. I was watching a actually great review on YouTube. It was very unbiased. Like, the dude bought a set and he was testing them, and he called this out on things he didn't like, and he called this out on things he did like. It was a really good review. And one of the tests he did, which was really interesting, was he looked at the speed out of the bow. He was comparing it out of another shaft. It was like I think it was like a 4 mil long range or something. And out of the bow, our 1K, I think, was 7 grains heavier. It was the 1K out of the bow was 1 foot per second slower than his current arrow setup. Then he tested the speed at, I think he was using that new Garmin thing. He tested the speed at 70 or 80 yards, or 60. And the 1K was, I think, 11 or 12 feet per second faster downrange than an arrow that is actually a 4 mil arrow, and out of the bow was 1 foot per second faster. So that, once again, compacts to that recovery rate. More energy is actually being spent with the arrow actually going straight downrange than swimming like a fish.
Yeah.
And, I think it's the conjunction of both the material and just the veins, and them being a little bit more aerodynamic and more high performance, kind of flying through the air. So
that, to me, I think, is the part that maybe gets lost in the sauce when people just look and see an expensive arrow on the shelf. That this wasn't just, you didn't just come out with a carbon shaft, stick some stuff on it, put it up there. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not what you did.
Yeah, and to my point earlier, our mission with our products is not to sell the most of any category of any product, right?
Yes.
Our goal, which I believe we've very much succeeded in with this, is to make the best product in each category. And the disappointing thing for me, I think, was the price point, and it being an arrow kind of caught people so off guard from us that no one seemed really excited about the innovation, the material, and everything, all the cool things, right? They are now, I think, after the dust has settled. But
I read this to you before. This was a review that just showed up 2 days ago on our site, on our video of the UV1K, where the guy says, yes, they are expensive. However, I cannot by any means write a negative review because my accuracy is on point. He says he runs through all the ones he tested, and the 1K are by far the best I've shot. So to your point, yeah, they cost more, but there's a benefit at the back end there.
Yeah, and I think, if you're just getting into archery and you're losing a lot of arrows in the backyard, like I would not recommend losing. It's like a good analogy, PJ, was when I was getting into target archery. I shot indoor I'm from Vermont, so I was pretty much indoor target archery for the longest time until I really got into it and I started competing outdoors. And I started competing and shooting more. And I remember showing up to my first ever USAT. Like, do they even call them those anymore? The first ever USA team calling event.
They're still USAT.
And I remember I looked down the line. Everybody had a quiver full of like X10s maxed out with like tungsten points and like not just 1 dozen in their quiver, like 2 dozen in their quiver. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't even imagine it. And I'm like, when you lose, because I literally at 11 years old, I got my first job in town working at the store, sorting bottles at the bottle return to buy my archery equipment because I had an archery problem. And I'm like, holy cow, like those arrows are expensive. And I'm like, when you lose one, it hurts. And so
yes, it does.
I had to get to a level in my archery to where I could justify spending the coin on a great set of X10s and it was justifiable, right? Because I wasn't losing. I still lost arrows in the backyard, but it wasn't, I could shoot for a couple weeks and I'd still have a dozen.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is, man.
It is what it is. That's right.
Yeah.
And for folks to understand, I know from us internally, they're selling well. I'll ask you from your end, you have a bigger picture than me, but for us, they're selling well.
We're seeing great things across the board. I know you guys asked for your like next order sooner, which tells me they're selling faster than you planned for.
Yeah.
I think if HQ's been a beehive lately and they're fighting to get our website back in stock, because I think we're like half of our SKUs are gone. And it's ripping off, man. Because people, there's a lot of commenters out there, but I have yet to see somebody open them, shoot them, test them, and go, I guess that review, exactly, right? They're like, yeah, they're the best. Now, am I going to be buying these for every hunt I go on and as my daily shooter in the backyard? Yeah, probably not. But if I pull a great elk tag and I'm going to be going out west, hopping on a plane I want the best, this is the best. And that's what we set out to make. We wanted to have innovation in a category that hasn't had exciting innovation in a while. We wanted to make just the best, easy to understand and get, and I think we did it.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned the recovery rate. I wanted to let folks who are watching this know what I saw was with my standard arrows, I torque. I know I torque. And so if I get off a good shot, any arrow I shoot tracks nice. But every now and then, if I'm shooting, I'll see one wiggle at the back end. With these, now I've been shooting them for a month. I have yet to see that. I know I'm still torquing the bow. That's not going to change. But yeah, I what do I know?
Because by the time,
but it just seems like I can see it.
By the time you see it in flight, it's already recovered.
Yeah. Whereas others, I would just see a little wiggle,
And the biggest thing is actually with field points, it doesn't matter much. But you're going to see the biggest effect when you throw like a fixed blade on this thing. Huge difference.
Yeah.
We've seen one of our guys internally did some tests. He purposely put a bow out of tune, shot some fixed blades at distance, and there was several inch distance.
You wouldn't have to put a bow out of tune, Kolby. You could have just asked me to come down there. I'm naturally
we'll fly you in to do our out of tune testing.
But he did that, and several
he did
inches.
That with many arrow setups, and ours were I don't remember the shafts he tested, But of the ones he tested, it was a several inch difference at like 40 yards, maybe 50 or something.
Yeah.
It was closer to the aim point. And it's like Victory has been super impressed with what they've seen. It's the best arrow it's like
you probably don't need something that is perfect, something that helps you if you shoot like Bodie Turner.
Right.
We don't all shoot like Bodie Turner. I know I sure don't. So yeah, stuff that can help mask my problems. That's definitely key.
Yep. So I forget what got us onto that, but
oh yeah, right.
I guess it was the left field, us getting into arrows.
Yeah.
You know, we saw a problem, wanted to solve it in Ultraview fashion. We're like, where can we improve? How can we? And really the bar with arrows was already really, really, really high. And so it was challenging. Like, how are we gonna move that bar? It's like the high jump. The Olympics just ended.
Yes.
It's like the high jump. It's like there's been Olympic records for like 40 years and like it goes up like a quarter inch when they break it. It's like, how do we do that with arrows?
Yeah.
You know? So.
All right. So listen, so I'm going to put in my order now. I'd like you to tackle like trail cameras next. Okay. If you can make those where someone like me who's technology challenged can work a trail camera.
Okay, so it's on the tech side.
Let's
talk about it, PJ. Maybe we will get into some trail cameras.
I just seem to. Kyle will tell you put technology in my hands, and bad things happen.
So you just want to strap it to the tree and then get notifications of a giant deer walking in front of it.
On. That's it.
Sent straight to your inbox.
Right there. Well. Was there anything we didn't talk about, Kolby, that you wanted to talk about? That's what I wanted to get into. I wanted to get into where Ultraview is now compared to...
I'll tell you the one thing that's been consistent.
How many employees you got?
I think 60.
60 in 6 years. And I'll come back to this. You go back 6 years ago. Kolby's getting the award. What was the award you got from Georgia Tech?
It was Adventure Prize. That's a great. Maybe we can tell that story too. Maybe so. You
get that award for and we'll say it, but you beat out like some.
Oh my gosh!
Kid who cured.
You'd think he cured cancer, right? There was medical. There's always really great companies in that competition from several different.
But Ultraview beat him out.
The archery company making an archery gadget. Yeah.
So you're there getting that award. Are you thinking? 6 years later, you got 60 employees making this.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Like that actually was the catalyst to me going, okay, what I'm doing here is special. I took several mentors who, were much further along in their life than me to go, this is special. You may never get an opportunity to do this again. There's no better time to do it than right now because, you don't have a family with kids and a mortgage and all of that. And so it actually took a lot of convincing for me to jump into the deep end because I had, I was taking out student loan. PJ, you know what I was doing? I could not get for my last semester of college, I couldn't get the student loan for it. Because my parents and myself were co-signed on all of them, and they were like, "Yeah, we can't approve you." So I had to have my grandma co-sign on not the last semester of college. They're like, "Yeah, we'll let you go." They're like, "We'll let you go to all the semesters and rack up all of this debt over here."
You're 98% there.
We won't let you finish. And that's just dumb in itself. But yes, grandma had to co-sign my last college loan, and so I'm like, "Well, the second I graduate, I gotta start making some money, man. I gotta pay off these student loans."
Have you paid grandma back yet?
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, she just co-signed on it.
Oh right. Yeah.
There was no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't come take grandma's house.
No. Grandma's house is still there.
Grandma's house.
And so I'm like, dang, I'm,
wow.
When I graduate, I gotta start making money. It's gonna take me 15 years with a good job, a good engineering job to pay these off. And so I literally had not only a great job, but like my dream job lined up. It was, I'm a nerd. Most people know this in the industry. I'm a huge engineering nerd, always will be. I was a material science engineer, and my dream job was to work on the commercial jet engines on the internal fan blades.
Okay.
Very niche, very weird, I know.
That was your dream job.
Dream job.
Okay.
Like living in heaven if I got that. But I had it lined up. Like I had the internship for that specific thing lined up, paperwork signed, and I happen in the, you go to the career fair at the beginning of the semester, you do your semester, and then you do your internship. Like in the middle of that semester was when this whole Inventure Prize winning it, and so I guess for those who don't know, when I entered in, I knew nothing about Inventure Prize. Once again, my college friends had to convince me to go do it. They're like, dude, enter into this thing. Like you're with Ultraview, you'll easily win it, like with what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, sure. So I entered in. There's many rounds to get to the finals. There's like quarterfinals, semifinals, judges, like looking at it's very startup competition. Like it's not like Shark Tank, but you can kind of think of like it.
Right.
It's I now know it's the nation's largest undergraduate invention competition. It started at Georgia Tech. It is now at all of the ACC schools. And so I happened to find myself in the finals. And, 5 other teams, like you said, medical device companies.
Yeah, it was a medical device. That's the one I remember.
Like apps, like, billion-dollar app ideas. Like Georgia Tech does a good job of like procuring like great teams. So like there's one kind of represented from every segment and all of that. And I guess I was the consumer product segment or something. And here I am with my archery gadgets in a pea-sized industry in comparison to like billion-dollar life-saving devices. And I was like almost embarrassed to step out on stage and talk about my archery scope. But, I wore my heart on my sleeve, went out there and just gave the pitch of my life. And they must have seen like my passion or something behind it. And I happened to win that night. And in winning, you get $20,000, no strings attached, seed funding for your idea. You get a patent filing for your idea. It was actually our first scope. Like the first idea of the integrated scope system is what I entered into the competition. What is really the heart of our scopes now. So you get seed funding, like patents for your invention, and acceptance into their startup accelerator program. And that is what it took me. All of the side, like I had a side hustle. It was doing a decent amount of, revenue for a side hustle for a college dorm room at the time. It took all of that to go, and many mentors convincing me there's no better time to do this. Like they like had me by the neck, like, you better do this.
I'm thinking, what if you took the jet engine job? You probably would have, this probably would have faded.
I probably would be shooting more though.
That's true.
But like, and I remember I called in to the company that I had signed like a letter of intent to work for. And I said, I'm not gonna be able to hold up my end of the bargain. Like I gotta go do this.
Yeah.
That was one of the hardest phone calls I've ever had to do. Because I was jumping into the deep end, man.
At 21 years old, I couldn't have made that call.
That was in 2018. So that was in 2018. Came out with the scope. Maybe it was 2017. I forget. That around that time.
Yeah.
And I still had 3 semesters left, I think, of school. 1 full year plus an extra semester. I transferred to Georgia Tech and I lost a couple credits, so I had to do like an extra semester. And so I had 1.5 years till I finished my degree. And I'm like, if I had not finished when I did, I probably wouldn't have finished.
Getting to the end of that financial rope there.
Yeah. And so I graduated at the very end of 2019. 2020, the illustrious year of COVID, I suppose. But January 1 of 2020 was like my first day of like, I don't got college. I'm pursuing this business side idea. I can hire employees. I can lease a real facility. At the time, it had actually outgrown my dorm room. and I was in the corner of Georgia's shop at the Archery Learning Center. Like we put up a wall and I had my 3D printers, and it was cranking, man. It was going to the moon.
I've seen a picture of all your printers going.
And so 2020 was our first like full year in real business. And since 2020, man, I've been like lights out. And because I was like, I'm doing this. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it how I do things. And I guess that's, to the wall, like 110%.
Uh-huh.
And, I've paid off my student loans. So grandma doesn't have to worry about that bad debt coming due. And ever since, it's been like, how do we come out with the next best product? How do we make our products better? How do we
do miss
innovate?
Seeing you at the tournaments, though.
Hey, I
saw you got to Vegas last year.
Mm-hmm. I shot a UV slider on the pro line.
Yeah.
I didn't practice much beforehand.
Probably a little rusty.
I was shooting some 300s with the slider beforehand. But to your point, PJ, the business is getting much bigger than myself now. I have a very, very great team. And I mean, I owe everything, almost since graduating to them now. Like this is not all of these ideas, like all of the work, all the execution, going and picking up arrows from a rail car. Like that's not me. Like that's the team. Like we've curated a team that has, shared value set. We're there because we're all product freaks. We love great products, and we're all very passionate about what we're doing. Whether it's archery, product design, like if you're a salesman, you better love sales. If you're a marketing guy, you better love marketing. Like we are a group of very passionate people driving a lot of innovation, and we're just pumped to come in and just like play in the sandbox of like, what can we make in archery today? Like what can we make better? Like where are we going next? And like when we come out with things, like we love to see the excitement and like bringing people in, and like, I don't know, I feel like we're new, cool, and exciting. And you're getting me all fired up now.
Well, it is different. You can definitely tell when your stuff comes out, the launches are different, the marketing's different. There's just a different level of, it's probably the age too, that it feels like a young company, and so what comes out looks like it comes from a young company. And nothing against the other companies, but just seems to be the vibe.
Mm-hmm. We're young enough to where we still make mistakes, but we also have now enough experience on our team where we're not just young and dumb. I've built up plenty of scar tissue over the last 6 years of bad decisions.
Rob Caulfield always tells us, he said he's made $5 mistakes and he's made $50,000 mistakes.
And I'm sure he's made much larger mistakes too.
Part of the game.
Yep. So, I mean, we're there grinding every day, man. And so, I owe it to the team. Also, my support network, like my family and my wife, like, dude, the last 3 months, like it has been nonstop, like 12 hours a day. When I'm in town, if I'm flying across the country to do podcasts, like, hey babe, like won't see you till tomorrow morning when I come back in town. Like, and everybody from my side of the family, her side of the family, like our friends, like, dude, it takes an army.
Yeah. For sure.
And I still got to wake up crazy enough to believe what we're doing is like, we're going somewhere, and I got to sell the mission. So
I liked it when you said, I forget when we had talked before, and you were like, yep, we're going all in with the sale. I think I asked you, are you going to take a vacation? You're like, nope, I don't have any money. I put it all into the arrows. All I'm going to be doing is working, trying to get that money back.
Right. Yeah. We dump it all into the next thing. And it's like playing blackjack and you're all in.
That's it. That's right.
Yeah. So,
well, can you give us like a tiny tidbit of what might be coming next?
So
or somewhere in the future?
Yeah, I can. Okay. I can. So now I had to really be careful.
Yes.
Let me see here. So we just came out with these arrows.
August
1st is when we came out with these arrows. We still have another
wheels.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I can say that. You'd think I would have rehearsed this, but it's coming off the top of the head. We keep your head on a swivel. We will continue to surprise and delight. It's not gonna like how it's tough because when you come out with new things, it gets the consumer mindset of like, oh, like I'll wait for it, but when we came out with these arrows, like it didn't affect anything else in our catalog.
Oh, right.
So like we have new cool things coming. It won't affect anything that's currently out there right now.
Gotcha.
So that's about as much as I can say.
So it's going to have me, just like when I heard Ultraview's doing arrows, I'm going to say something like that next time.
Yes. You're going to go, holy crap.
Well, perfect. There you have it. We're going to wait and see. Kolby Hanley, we appreciate your time today. We're going to do some more cool stuff here. But that's another episode of Lancaster Archery Tech Talk.